Okay, looks like we are live and we'll go ahead and get started. This is going to be a knife focused class tonight, and yeah, so start off with a single knife. We will probably go to double knife, just sort of depending on how the class kind of flows. It is better to have a metal knife if you have one. If you only have a plastic knife, fine, we'll make do. But there's things that we'll be doing in the drill that will be more obvious with, or more easily done with a metal knife than a lot of these plastics ones. And you'll kind of see as we get going with that. Okay, if you have questions, go ahead and type them in, and I will be checking them out over the course of the class. So let's go ahead and get started. So, basic salute, Duhan. Okay. So again, starting single knife. Let's go over basic thrust and slash. If you're a part of Paquita University, this is in the Yacon material, but we'll go ahead over the basics of it. Okay, so we're going to start off with, and we actually already did this in the last knife class that I did online, but we're going to go ahead and do this again because we may have some new viewers out there right now. So to start, we're going to go ahead and I'll just do the arm motion, and I'm going to assume that, and I'm not going to explain the footwork too much, but the arm motion is going to start out down on the right hip, coming up to the shoulder, rechambers down to the left hip, rises, comes back, and then comes across. Okay, so I call that upward three. This is just part of the strikes and thrusts as we go through this. So 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Okay, and 1, 2, 3. Okay, let's do that left hand. So 1, hip load, 2, pull that back, 3, and back. So 1, hip load, 2, back, 3, and 1, 2, 3. So I want to talk really quick about hand transfers on here. So when I'm doing this, and there's a number of different videos out there on how people hand transfer. To me, the big danger on any time you change hand, just like we just did this piece, we came across, how do you change hands to move over to the other side? And it's one of these little fundamentals that a lot of people don't talk about that we'd like to address. The most dangerous one is if I take it in this hand and I just do this, right? Hold on, change my view a little bit here so I can see what I'm actually doing and not on delay. So the dangerous is if I transfer here. Why? Because for that brief period of time, I don't really have a good grip on this, okay? And when I'm doing this in class, this may not be a big deal. I may have good hand dexterity. If one of the first things to go in adrenaline is fine motor skills, okay? And so it's very easy to fumble. It's actually one of the interesting things that I find when fighting with gloves on is that kind of replicates some of your fine motor skill loss, as your feel and just your fumble finger isn't necessarily as good as it could be. So when we want to go and transfer that, I want to do a couple things. So in general, when I transfer the knife, I want to get a grip on the other knife at the same time. So one way to transfer this is going to be, I transfer, I'm going to reach across, and I'm actually going to dig under my own hand here, okay? And then I get my fingers under it and I transfer here. Okay, so this is a really solid way. So now, right, I'm double hooked on this when I'm doing this to learn how to transfer a knife. One of the interesting things on this is that it is reversing my grip, right? I'm in forward grip, I switch, I'm in reverse grip, forward grip, reverse grip, forward grip, reverse grip. Okay, so let's take that and let's go back to the drill we were just doing. Okay, so 1, 2, 3. transfer, down to left side, hip load. Now, that I'm loaded here, right? I happen to have a double-sided knife as a trainer for it, which is good. So now my rising, what before was, I'm going to stick another trainer in here just so you can see that these are the same lines, right? This is a thrust, or it's a slash using the reverse edge of the knife. Down the other side, thrust or slash here, thrust or slash depending on the orientation. Okay, so do that again with just in reverse grip. So now this is slash, slash, slash. Transfer here, thrust, 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 transfer, slash, 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 transfer, thrust, thrust, thrust. Okay, transfer, slash, slash, slash. Okay, so let's look at some other ways of changing hands, right? So the one that I was showing first is this dig under and separate, and this dig under and reverse it, right? So as we did that here. So now, is there another way that I could transfer this? And so one way, if I wanted to stay reverse grip to reverse grip, and I'm not saying that you're like, oh, I want to be in reverse grip now. It may be usually, and I'm also almost never going to advocate actually for changing knife grips in the middle of a fight. The reason you change a knife grip is because someone forced you to do it. They locked up your arm, and now you have to change hands, and you don't want to fumble this hand switch, okay? So they 2-on-1, they wrapped up my arm, and now I'm going to open, pull this open, pull this off. Okay, so now another one, okay, again, this is the dig, okay? So another one is going to be, I'm going to reach in here, put the web of the hand on the pommel of the weapon, and again, if you have a smaller handle, that might be problematic. And I can push-pull, right? Again, now I've got hands on both pieces of it, and now I'm switched, okay? To reverse that, I could do the same thing here. I can be here and grab it, or I can open up my thumb and come inside and look at my hand switch, right? So here, here, here. I'll give you a couple different angles on that. Here, here, here. I can do it, it's harder with this short way, but I could do it this way if I can get my web of my hand in, but it makes it a lot easier if I open up the thumb and do that switch that way, okay? So we have two switches now. The dig, because I'm digging in to get that one here. And then I'm using the web of the hand here and coming in this way. I don't have a name for these, it's just hand switches, okay? Here. Again, you should be used to this. I'm holding this in front of the camera, but you should be able to do this anywhere when I'm doing that, okay? So I did that reverse grip to reverse grip. There's no reason that I can't make that go forward grip. The forward grip is part of that exchange, right? So now I'm exchanging, I'm separating, exchanging. Okay, I go to reverse grip again here. So I can be transferring back and forth, and I can do it the other way as well. Just play with this, okay? As you get used to this, and you just sort of get a feeling for how those hand transfers are going to come. Let me switch back over to views here, see if there's any questions. Nope, none so far. Okay, so now I'm going to actually change. Okay, go to this knife. Okay, and one of the reasons I want to do this is I want to illustrate that I want you to be able to know what your sharp side is from your dull side. With a double-bladed knife, obviously it doesn't matter. But one of the things that we're going to be focusing on is sort of knife dexterity, being able to manipulate that knife tonight. And so when we're doing this and we're doing our transfers, unless you want this reverse blade edge up or edge, then great, go for it. But generally, you are going to want to keep in forward grip your blade forward. In reverse grip, there's really solid arguments for either side. Typically, if I'm fighting or in reverse grip, I'm thinking that as edge in, unless I have a specialized knife like a karambit. So when I'm practicing this, I want to be thinking about what my edge orientation, and I should be able to, if I have a trainer that's similar enough to my regular folder, that I should be able to, I want to be reverse grip, edge in, and I go to here, okay? And I can maintain myself in that exchange. I can switch myself up to reverse grip, edge out, but that all of my transfers are secure here to the appropriate time, okay? And part of that is, I shouldn't need to look at my knife to be able to do that. Most knives are not perfectly symmetric, right? They have an index for where the edge is, and they have, in the case of a folder, you should know what side, your clip is, and that's going to tell you where your edge is when you're going to transfer and move around with that, okay? So you should be familiar enough with your normal carry that this shouldn't be a problem, right? You should be able to manipulate and use this. Again, it's not because I want you to change hands in the middle of a fight for tactical purposes, right? I'm assuming that if your hand is, your knife is in your right hand, you're there until you're forced to. Maybe you just got stabbed in the arm and you don't think you've got good grip, strength anymore, and so now you go to switch. Fine. But for whatever reason, you're forced to transfer. I don't want, unless you have lots of space and time, there's not a reason to be like, oh, well, I'm gonna go lefty on this guy. It's like, realistically, that's dueling. That's not self-defense. In a duel, great, go for it. Okay, anyway, so general thought processes on that one. And so now let's take that back. We're gonna go back to the same drill we were just doing. Okay, and I'm gonna change away from my live blade for this one. Okay, so 1, 2, 3, transfer to either forward grip or reverse grip, depending on what you want to do. 3, transfer, 1, 2, 3, transfer, 1, 2, 3, okay, transfer, 1, 2, 3, transfer, 1, 2, 3. Okay, that should be getting more comfortable as we go to transition between each of those pieces. Okay, here. Okay, so now we're going to go to the high line 3. So that was what I call upward 3 because the lines are up and up and up. Now we're going to downward 3. Okay, so downward 3 is 1, 2, which should be the first of your 5 attacks or the first of your tri-V striking patterns. 1, 2, 3. And what I just did should be 1, 2, 2 if you're thinking of this as the first thing you learn in Pekiti University is 1, 2, 2 as a striking pattern. Kind of the same thing. 1, 2, circular. This is really a vertical, but if I did a true vertical, I'm going to stab myself in the leg, so we don't want to do that. So it's going to come in a little bit of an arc, a little bit of a circle, and come off to the side. 1, 2, 3, right? 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Again, these are really fundamental things. If you've just tuned in and you don't know what we do here, these are basic slashes and thrusts. I'm going to reverse, my position into forward grip, right? 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Nothing changes. 1, 2, 3. Obviously, there's some application differences there, but same difference. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Okay. Now, can we do grip switches through that? Absolutely. So if we're going to chain that to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, and from here we're going to grip switch to here. So now we've got a shoulder transfer. Here, switch, and we're on the left side of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Transfer. Now this time I want to reverse grip. 1, 2, 3. You don't have to go reverse grip. I'm just saying here you can. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Last time I was in reverse grip, so this time I want to be in forward grip. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Last time I'm going to transfer. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Transfer. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, and okay. 6 count slashes and thrust. You're reversing using the hand grip, the hand exchange throughout there. There's a couple other options here. I can go 1, 2, and I can transfer to 1, 2. Obviously, if I'm going to shorten the drill, 1, 2, right? And if I want to rise on this one, I can transfer 1, 2. That kind of reversed it, but that you should be able to transfer. As you go through these different pieces. How and where you want to do that is kind of up to you right here. So like for example here, I can transfer 1, 2, 3, right? So I did a 1, 2, 3, and now I went for a transfer back on this side, and I could either start high, 1, 2, 3 here, or if I did that again here, I can start low, 1, 2, 3. Again, this is just getting familiar with your weapon, really more than anything else. It's just a process of moving around and getting used to moving and flowing like that. Okay, so a couple different grip hand exchanges that we've done, right? So we've done our dig here, we've done sort of a reach in here, and that same thing happens on this side. Here, as I'm moving around, I could do it this way depending on the alignment, right? For some reason, again, you might be digging in, my arms crossed here. I can't come this way. I can also go this way for that. A lot of this is up to you to develop that familiarity on your own. That's a drill. Okay, so now another familiarity, or this is literally, I learned this from James Keating, so not Bikiti here. But this is literally called a knife dexterity drill. Okay, so we're going to start off with is, now how do I, without using this hand, how do I translate grips, right? So how do I move between forward grip and reverse grip? So this is the way I was shown by James Keating, and I like it. Not because I want you to change grips in the middle of a fight. Again, that's not the point. The point for me is when I draw my knife, especially since I have a folder, I start out at some point with 2 fingers or not a full grip on my knife. Obviously, if I had a sheath knife and I could go to full grip, this would be less of an issue. But at some point with a folder draw, okay, I don't have a full grip. So I have to transfer to a good grip at some point. And so I'm going to do this in this case with either of these 2 methods. With this part of the drill, it helps to have a heavier knife because you need a little extra bit on the blade to give it some weight. It's going to be harder. You can do it with like a plastic knife. Can you show then how to transfer the forward grip to reverse grip with blade out? Okay, let me come right back to that. Bill, okay? So I'm going to finish up this thought and I'll come back to that one. Okay, so I'll do it with this one. So this is called, well, I don't know. I don't even know what the name. This is just reversing the grip. And so the first thing you're going to do is hold it between these 2 fingers. And I'm going to move to this blade. And also will be really useful to have kind of a flat blade on your training blade. So I pulled this knife out. It's extended, and I just picked it up. So I want to index with these 2 fingers. I'm going to let the weight go, and I need that butt of that knife to transfer that. And see how I also lost it? There's a reason why I'm not advocating for this in the middle of the fight as I move back and forth. Okay, so I draw this again. And I've seen it this way as well. I'm used to this one, so it's nice and familiar to me. So we're doing this. So I got my draw. I picked up the knife. I'm going to reverse it, and then I move into position. Okay. Again, out and in, out. Give myself a grip. Re-pinch it and change. Pinch it and change. Pinch it. Go to my good reverse grip position. Here, pinch it, forward grip. Okay, reverse, here, reverse, here. Okay, so basic. Now you see I'm getting all fancy here. I'm using that line and I'm undoing. Now you reverse that by going the other way and back. So I've seen it described as you can cut, and here I'm not saying that's application, but if that gives you the feel of what's going on, you can do that, okay? And then as you come back, you can come back out here. So back and back, back and back. Again, even on this aluminum folder, the weight is pretty even. Life gets a lot easier with a real knife or something more accurate to a actual weight, okay? And then you can add in your hand transfer here. Oh, look. So now I switch. Now I switch my hands. I do the same thing as I reverse here. Hand transfer here. Maybe I'm using the dig on this one here to get this back out. Here, come back in. Okay. So again, this is the pinch grip. Reverse, back, I re-pinch it, and back, okay? Pinch, back, switch, then switch it this way, back, out, back, and out. Okay, one of the things, again, I don't want you to fight like this, but so the other reason I have this is not only because your draw, you may pick the knife off the ground, you dropped it, you reached down and you grabbed it, and you're not in a great grip position for it. So now you're working to reestablish and move into a grip. And you're just used to not starting off with a good secure hammer grip on this in the beginning of the fight. Okay, so the next transfer is pinch grip here and back. So this one's cigarette flip. Okay, so I'm gonna turn this one slightly. So now I'm going to pinch with these two fingers. There's probably an argument to be made for why do I have so many different pinches, but I'm going to let it twist so that these fingers go behind it, changes, and reverses. Okay, so I'll untwist that. Okay, so here I'm in forward grip. And if I did it just straight, there's some stuff to be watchful for. Forward grip, edge out, okay. Transfer. Now, depending on how I close my fist, I can reverse grip, edge in, reverse grip, edge out, okay. That's up to you and, again, your familiarity. If I was using this knife, I wouldn't actually be able to tell, what my grips are because they're the same. So there's an argument to be made for this particular method. Okay, so flip, and depending on where I want to go, again, I want edge in. Okay, I'm going to, if I want to flip that back the other way. Okay, so other way, bang, bang. Okay, maybe I want to cigarette flip this one. Now, I cigarette flipped it here, and I come to reverse blade out. Again, this there's no easy and fast answer to this. You just have to learn to move between these different pieces. So if we put that together, it is pinch grip, cigarette flip up, okay, cigarette flip back. Roll, roll, cigarette flip, and I'm not going to get that one out. Cigarette flip and turn, okay. Roll, roll, cigarette flip, here, cigarette flip, back. Again, not supposed to be done in combat. Don't try to look cool. Just do your work. Okay. And you should be able to do that with both hands. I'm not as good with my left as my right. So here I transfer out, back, up, here, and back. Okay. Out, back, back. Transfer, here, here, here. I will warn you that once you start doing this, you're going to find yourself in the kitchen with a chef knife trying to do this. And your wife's going to look at you weird. Okay. Just warning you now. Okay, good. So play with that. Let me come back to Bill's question. Can you show me again how to transfer from foregrip to reverse grip with the blade out? Okay, so a couple different ways. A lot of this is moving this in position. So if I am foregrip, edge out here, so I'm going to move to transfer. Now, again, I can transfer that to edge out, right? Or to edge in. That makes sense. I'm going to do that. I should do this way. All right. I just peel that and go to here, or I peel that and turn. That is going to depend on what you want to do with that. So it's just an extra little manipulation of the hand. There's nothing physically different with that hand transfer here beyond what you just place it. And you may be forced in that hand exchanges. I really wanted to go to edge in, but I got to here. And if I try to do it, I'm going to get stuck halfway. So I'm going to fix myself and take it to edge forward. So it's not a different technique. It's just moving to the different positions, if that makes sense. Okay, how are we doing time? Okay, so we are at 30 minutes in. Bill, if that answered your questions, let me know. If it didn't, hit me up again, and I will try to address what you're looking for. Okay, so let's use that. Okay, I'm going to transfer away from my hard blade. 1, 2, 3. Okay, 4, 5, 6. Do a cool cigarette flip here. Cigarette flip. Cigarette flip. Hard to do with that one. And now you're back to that one. 1, 2, 3. Okay, so you're in forward grip here. Switch to reverse grip here. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Go to forward grip here. Okay, cigarette flip up to reverse grip, and now down. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Reverse grip, cigarette flip, reverse. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Do a hand transfer over to your left hand. 1, 2, 3. Where's it going to go? Oh yeah, here. I can switch that back. 4, 5, 6. So play around with those different hand transfer points and play around with methods of changing. This isn't fixed. This is just getting used to hand manipulation as you move through these different pieces. Okay. Again, I've seen technique where there are changes, and actually I'm going to go over one of those. I'm going to say that I've only done it very rarely in sparring, and it's definitely in a dueling context, because if you screw it up, it's bad news. So usually in hand transfers, it's because you're forced to go there, not because you want to go there. But you may do it to look cool. Oftentimes in stick work, where you have a big long stick, it's easy, to change hands. With a knife, with a grip like that, it's much harder. The best the transfer between forward and reverse within your own hand is one that I've literally heard people advocate against. Like, don't grab the blade. You can grab the blade. So I'm forward grip and I want reverse grip. Okay. Okay. As long as nobody yanks it out of your hand when you're doing this, this is a sharp knife. Okay. I can do this and I'm fine. Okay, it's not an issue. What I can't do is have someone pull this out of my knife right now. Okay, so I'm in forward grip, I want to reverse. I can do that all the time. Okay, that's the way I really want people to hand transfer, though there are other uses for these dexterity drills that we're doing. Okay, so Punanguro Mark Denny, Like, you'll watch people, hand transfers, advocated against this, and I totally disagree. You can grab this, you know, like this, and you are safe as long as nobody yanks it out of your hand. If for whatever reason you need to hand transfer, that's a really secure way of doing a hand transfer as I go through here, right? You're less likely to drop this thing on your toe than if I'm doing this. You guys already seen me screwed up like 5 times doing these fancy flips, okay? So if I'm gonna do a hand transfer, I can do that. And especially if I have a little bit of a longer handle, right? Here, I can do that. But you should also get used to these various transfers. But this was just an easy way of reversing my grip that's nice and secure if I'm in the middle of a fight. And there's nothing wrong with that. In my opinion, you'll get people who will tell you different. Okay, so anyway, basic hand transfer, and we're gonna go over some technique coming in pretty soon. Okay, take a quick break and coming back, about 30 seconds.
Can I ask one question?
Yeah.
So, and you're probably going to cover this in techniques or such, but when you do the stabbing, do you want to do it like punches where you carry it on through, or since it's a knife, do you want to do it more like a whip?
Okay, let me adjust that when I get rid of that. So.
Okay. Because that one's always confused me. It's like, because you know the applications are there, but you know with the knife, I always thought that you want to do it quick, then out, and do it again. You know, unless you're going for like extreme damage.
Yep. Yep.
So I was just wondering which one would be better.
Okay, so question came in, well, if I'm stabbing someone, am I, you know, how far am I trying to punch through the target? And the answer is usually I'm not, like if I'm gonna punch someone, you usually say, you know, aim for 6 inches past the target. If I'm stabbing someone, which is the equivalent of a thrust, right? I punch, I stab, I'm trying to, it's kind of the same thing. When I imagine hitting someone with a punch, you know, I'm aiming my punch for 4 to 6 inches past wherever the surface of the target is. Well, that's kind of the same thing as I'm imagining that I'm actually, you know, my full extension should be through the target. There are times when you don't, and if I don't get there, great, but usually my penetration is I would love to be able to use the full depth of a knife blade. I am not trying to do full penetration on a Bowie knife, right? If you can see it, there's a false edge here. This is why the Bowie knife and sabers have these, is that you get increased resistance as you get farther in here so that you don't stab and bury this thing all the way to your hilt. That said, one of the common injuries that people will see on knife stabbings is bruising from guards if your blade has a guard, on the victim, and that's because they are getting full penetration of the blade all the way down to the hilt. It is also why you get people punching, riding up, and getting knife bites on their hand, is because when they stab, that happens, okay? Because something stopped it. Again, if I'm going to use a thrust on a sort of carry knife of something like this, I'm looking at penetrating the distance of this. Coincidentally, that tends to be like 4 inches, a lot like my penetration through when I hit a punch. That said, I'm not, you know, when I hit a punch, I'm not going all the way through, right? I'm still bang, and I'm still coming back. No different on the thrust as I come in here, hit and pull back, right? I'd love to be able to rechamber this. It's not a lightsaber. It's not going to go through, you know, rip them in half. So I'm going to hit and come back. I'm going to hit and come back. So good question for where that was coming from. Okay. So we are going to use the upward 3 and downward 3. Okay, and then fortunately I've got someone here, and we can go over some application. But so what we were just doing, 1, 2, 3. Okay, for downward 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, for upward 3. Now, these two play counter to each other. If you're familiar with the Pikiti curriculum, upward 3 versus downward 3 is the core of knife tapping. Okay, where I'm going to switch these in here so we can make sure that we're both in here. Okay. Here. Okay, he's going to give me a number 1. Okay, overhand. Okay, I deflect and I pass. Well, what's that? So he does that again. Come over here. This is my number one. This is downward. This is the number three of the number one of the downward. Give me a backhand. Okay. As I pass that by, give me an overhand give me a thrust. Good. Okay, that's number three. Give me a backhand. Okay, here, give me a high thrust. Okay, so that's 1, 2, 3 versus rising. Give me a number one. Backhand, forehand, forehand. Okay, so that is the core of downward three versus upward three. Reverse grip versus sock on the core. My side translates to empty hands for defense. So this part of this drill is he's going to give me a high line thrust to the head here. In knife tapping, the drill was pass this one by. Okay. If he doesn't do that, and a lot of times in the high line thrust, a lot of times this is predicated on he feels contact and he's dropping and cutting. It's a way of him taking advantage of my cut. Let's actually step forward a little bit here. Okay, good. So give me that. Okay, now if he doesn't do this, or it's a high line and I stopped it, okay, and he doesn't and he pauses, I get initiative and I get to come in. So we're going to do that as the first part of this. So the number one, okay, stop for a second. So I just want to have them do this. So 1 here and thrust. That's the first part of what we're going to do, which comes out of that 1, 2, 3 is 1 and drive. The last knife technique we did off of in the last session 2 weeks ago was pick, high line drive with that. That's exactly what this one is, okay? So he gives me a high line thrust here and I enter, okay? So straight on is block. I'm actually using the forearm to block against his arm here, and then checking hand and I enter, okay? If this hand ducks here and he goes low, I'm going to do this, and I'm still going to get an entry with the knife line. The danger, which a different drill addresses, is if this whole thing is kind of a fake out and he dives low as soon as we make contact, and that's where knife tapping comes in. This is dealing with a different part of the drill. So in and back, okay? Which is really straightforward. So in and back, if you've ever done traditional karate, inward block, right? And hammer fist in is where this would come from, okay? Here and here, bang, bang. So the next one, so that's 1, if I got interrupted, and enter, okay? The next one is out here, okay, which is your backhand line, right? So 1, 2, so 1 here, 2, and here, okay? 1, enter, backhand, enter. 1, enter, backhand, enter. 1, enter, backhand, enter. Okay? The last one comes from this core motion of here. Okay? I wasn't really emphasizing footwork earlier, but transfer, clear center line, grab the arm, and come underneath. Okay? So he's going to give me a center line thrust foregrip. Here, actually come up this side. Okay. Go right hand for this one just to get it easy. So right, I move out of the way, I transfer here, and I come in that way. One more time. Here. Okay, target the femoral, groin, come in to the neck, depending on height and all that stuff. Okay, so he's going to start off high line thrust, enter, okay, and bring him over here, backhand thrust, bang. I'm actually ignoring his half of the drill. There's a whole drill side of this. Here, I'm going to pass, he's going to thrust, and then low line. Here, and I'm going to enter. Okay. The point on my part as reverse grip, the guy with the nominally shorter weapon, is that I need to get in close, especially versus a foregrip. Let's make this ridiculous. He has a giant Bowie knife, right? I got a problem, and I don't want to play at distance, And so fortunately for me, he gave me something just big enough to enter. To be able to do this. Yes, he was giving me a meatball idea. But on the thrusts, right? So on any of the thrusts, they're easier to avoid. They're less telegraphic. They're more dangerous. They have a greater range. But usually they can be easier to avoid, or you can redirect them relatively easily, and maybe you go the other way. In this case, we're talking about going this way. I've done it in sparring where I've redirected the tip that way, and that's absolutely valid. It shows up in all the historical manuals as in the last oh crap moment, you can do that. Not recommended, but you can do that, okay? Ideally on this one, here I got off line this way. What's the other equivalent of this? Is he thrusts, bang, okay? That was the last technique also that we did on that last knife video, okay? For the same reason. So here, and maybe I enter this way. Here, there's my enter line, and I go underneath, okay? So the core of these techniques is high line, he goes high line thrust, okay? Enter, okay? Back line here, enter, low line, enter, okay? So my job as reverse grip guy is to go enter, no matter where he goes, I enter, right? So my job's really straightforward. I should be running away or I need to get close to him because I'm not going to win, you know, against that longer weapon. You can take that, I mean, as much as you want to take it. They've in some of the historical manuals they have examples of like big daggers against long swords. Again, that's a suicidal position to be in. I don't think it was a high percentage thing, but they're there, you know, like as a last oh crap moment. Okay, so but think of this as you're in this motion of 1, 2, circle, pass, either get the guts back or sidestep against that center line thrust and enter. Okay, that number 1 comes in. If I look at my footwork now, that number 1 is coming in here. I get offline. I actually match it with my own number 1 this way. I'm going to check here and enter. Okay, I'm going to sidestep or 45 this one, backhand line, check, enter, low line, sidestep because that's more center line here, back, and enter. That is fraught with, you know, difficulties about estimating where some of the stuff is going. It's never easy to close on a person, and you know, some of the drills can make it like, oh, this is all you have to do. It's not all you have to do. Maybe next week or one of the other days we'll do knife. We'll show the other side of this drill, which is the long range guy, and his job is thrust, he counters, I gunting his cut, I re-enter, I gunting his cut, and re-enter. And I'm spending, as forward grip guy, I'm spending my job at long distance, quartering him and picking him apart at long range, and reverse grip guy is closing and entering. But we're not going to go over that one tonight. But think about knife dexterity and think about reverse grip, about this action of closing. Again, we're using this reverse grip versus forward grip on idea. There's no reason that it doesn't go to unarmed, but this is just on general philosophy about how this enters is this reverse grip guy has to close, okay? Forward grip guy, especially with ridiculously sized knives, can stay at distance and pick you apart. That's all I have tonight. If you have any questions, please throw them up, and I will give you a couple minutes for it. So, any other questions you have?
No, that was pretty much it.
Okay. We haven't had a lot of questions on the...
I do actually...
Okay.
It's actually about your next class with the long range thing. Would it be alright if I come to that class and, you know, be the long range person?
Let me let you know.
Okay.
Okay, I don't see any more questions, so good. I hope that was helpful. And I'm planning to be here next Wednesday, so same bat time, same bat channel. Good. Respect.